power, betrayal, revenge. We've all heard stories of scandals that bring down the rich and powerful. But what if I told you this wasn't just another affair? What if I told you this was a takedown 10 years in the making? A single blog post, just a few hundred words. And with it, an empire collapsed, a marriage shattered, and a man who had everything lost it all overnight. But here's where it gets interesting. The blog wasn't just exposing a scandal. It was hiding one. The people you think are guilty, they might be victims. The people you think are innocent, they might be pulling the strings. And the mastermind? Well, you're not going to see this one coming. Stay with me. Because once we pull back the curtain, nothing will ever look the same again. Houston, Texas, 2014. A city of wealth, power, and opportunity. A place where fortunes were made overnight, where the tech industry was booming, and where one man sat at the top of it all, Andre Whitmore. For over 2 decades, Andre built a name for himself as one of the most influential figures in the tech world. A millionaire, a visionary, a leader whose decisions shaped the future of innovation. His company, Whitmore Technologies, had headquarters in the heart of downtown Houston, a towering glass structure that symbolized everything he had accomplished. Inside, hundreds of employees worked tirelessly, pushing the boundaries of technology. And at the very top floor, in an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Andre ruled his empire. But power comes with its own price. At home in River Oaks, one of Houston's most exclusive neighborhoods, Andre had what seemed to be the perfect life. A beautiful mansion, a family that graced the pages of luxury magazines, and a wife who had been with him since the beginning. Janice Whitmore wasn't just the millionaire's wife, she was his rock. The woman who had stood by his side when they were just 2 ambitious college kids at the University of Houston, dreaming of a future that seemed impossible. 4 years, they had been inseparable. Janice had supported Andre through the grueling early days of his startup, through the sleepless nights, the endless pitches, the moments when it all seemed like it could fall apart. And when the success came, the private jets, the lavish vacations, the front row seats at Rockets games, it was just the reward for everything they had sacrificed together. But money changes things. So does power. And in 2014, everything came crashing down. The cracks had started forming long before anyone noticed. Andre was staying at the office later than usual, taking meetings he never mentioned, becoming more distant. And Janice? She felt it. That unshakable feeling that something was wrong. But she ignored it. She had to. Because she trusted her husband. And she trusted Rebecca even more. Rebecca Calloway. Young, sharp, ambitious. She had started as Andre's executive assistant 5 years earlier and quickly became indispensable. She was the one who kept his life running like a well-oiled machine, the one who knew his schedule better than he did, the one who handled everything from investor meetings to coffee orders with the same level of precision. But more than that, she was Janice's best friend. Rebecca had been there for family dinners, holiday parties, even quiet nights on the Whitmore's backyard patio, sipping wine with Janice and talking about life. If Janice ever needed a confidant, someone to vent to about the pressures of being married to a man as powerful as Andre, Rebecca was always there, listening, understanding. And maybe that was the real betrayal. Because while Janice had confided in Rebecca, Rebecca had been keeping a secret of her own. 4 months, whispers had started circulating in Houston's elite circles. Rumors of Andre and Rebecca being seen together outside of the office. A business trip to New York where only one hotel room was booked. A private dinner at a restaurant in the Galleria, where someone swore they saw them sitting a little too close. But in a city as big as Houston, rumors came and went. And Janice? She refused to believe them. Until the blog post. It hit the internet like a bomb. An anonymous expose on a gossip blog that catered to Houston's wealthy elite. The headline was brutal. The millionaire, the best friend, and the betrayal. The affair that could end an empire. It detailed everything. Late-night office meetings, secret rendezvous at luxury hotels, a supposed love nest in a high-rise condo near Memorial Park. Screenshots of alleged text messages, witness statements from anonymous sources who claimed they saw Andre and Rebecca together, receipts from extravagant gifts purchased under fake business expenses. Janice read every word. And by the time she finished, her entire world had shattered. But here's where it gets interesting. Because while the affair itself was scandalous enough, the blog, the story, the sudden, explosive exposure, it wasn't what it seemed. Because the person who leaked the story wasn't looking for justice. They were looking for revenge. The scandal didn't unfold in whispers. It didn't trickle out through anonymous tips or grainy surveillance footage. It hit all at once, loud, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. One moment, Andre Whitmore was a respected name in the tech world, a man admired for his sharp mind and ruthless business tactics. The next, his private life was laid bare for anyone with an internet connection. The post wasn't written like a tabloid hit job. It had structure, confidence. It read like an investigative report, like someone had been collecting evidence for months, waiting for the perfect moment to let the truth out. Dates, locations, hotel names, transactions tied to expensive gifts, even messages exchanged between Andre and Rebecca, their tone growing bolder, more reckless. Whoever wrote it knew everything. And that's what made it terrifying. Within hours, it was everywhere. At first, it was dismissed as an internet hoax, a fabricated story meant to smear a high-profile businessman. But as the details were cross-checked, as employees whispered about things they had seen, as journalists started digging deeper, the weight of the truth became undeniable. Andre had been having an affair with Rebecca Calloway. And he hadn't been careful. At Whitmore Technologies, employees had noticed changes in Rebecca months before the story broke. A promotion that raised eyebrows, expensive jewelry that didn't match her paycheck, sudden trips to places she had no reason to be. As for Andre, he had always been a man in control, someone who prided himself on his discipline. But something about Rebecca made him reckless. He started taking risks, leaving meetings early, disappearing for hours, using company funds in ways that weren't easy to explain. Janice hadn't suspected a thing. At least, not until she saw the article. It's one thing to hear a rumor, to catch a suspicious glance or hear a hushed conversation that stops the moment you enter the room. Those things you can brush off. You can tell yourself you're imagining them. But reading a fully documented exposé about your husband's affair, seeing every detail laid out in black and white, there's no ignoring that. She read every word, twice. And with every sentence, the life she thought she had built cracked a little more. The fallout was immediate. The media swarmed. Investors panicked. Andre, the man who once commanded boardrooms with ease, suddenly found himself on the defensive, scrambling to explain, to deny, to control a story that was already out of his hands. But the real question wasn't about the affair itself. It wasn't even about how reckless he had been. The real question was this: who had written the blog post? Because this wasn't the work of some bored internet gossip. This was personal. And if it was personal, that meant someone close to Andre wanted to see him fall. Someone who knew his secrets. Someone who had been watching. And whoever they were, they had just declared war. 15 years. That's how long Watson had been waiting. 15 years since Andre Whitmore had crushed his company, leaving him with nothing but debts, humiliation, and a name that no investor would dare touch. Back then, in the early 2000s, both men were young, ambitious, and determined to make their mark in the rapidly growing tech industry. They weren't friends, not really, but there was mutual respect. Watson had built his company, Monroe Innovations, from the ground up, just like Andre had built Whitmore Technologies. For a while, they were neck and neck, competing for the same contracts, the same investors. It was a rivalry, but one that had limits. Until Andre crossed a line. It wasn't just a business deal, It was a calculated move that wiped Monroe Innovations off the map. Andre had been ruthless, securing a major acquisition that Watson had spent years negotiating. A deal that would have made Monroe Innovations a powerhouse in the industry. But Andre didn't just outbid him, he sabotaged him. He leaked inside information that scared off Watson's biggest backers, made sure suppliers severed ties, and within months, Watson's company collapsed under financial strain. Andre didn't think twice about it. In his mind, it was just business. But to Watson, it was war. Andre had taken everything from him. His company, his reputation, his future. And Watson never forgot. While Andre thrived, Watson was left picking up the pieces. He was laughed out of meetings, rejected from partnerships, forced to start over from nothing. And through all of it, one thought burned in his mind: I'll make him pay. But revenge couldn't be rushed. If Watson was going to take down Andre Whitmore, it couldn't be sloppy. It had to be precise. So he played the long game. For years, he watched from the sidelines as Andre's empire grew. He studied him, learned his weaknesses. He knew Andre had built his entire brand on control, on his image as a disciplined, no-nonsense leader. And he knew that the only way to truly destroy him wasn't to attack his business. It was to ruin his name. And then, he found Rebecca. That's when Watson knew he had the perfect weapon. The affair was an opportunity. A gift. Andre had handed him the one thing he needed to bring him down. Not with corporate sabotage, not with legal battles, but with something much worse. Public disgrace. And so, Watson waited. 4 months, he collected every detail. He had sources in Whitmore Technologies, people who had been loyal to him long before Andre stole his company. They fed him information, whispers of a woman getting special treatment, of hotel reservations under fake names, of expensive gifts charged to company accounts. And when the time was right, he struck. The blog post wasn't written out of spite. It wasn't about exposing an affair for the sake of scandal. It was Watson's masterpiece. A perfectly timed explosion that would burn everything Andre had built to the ground. And as Andre scrambled to save his reputation, as his name was dragged through every news outlet, as investors pulled back and board members questioned his leadership, Watson sat back and watched. Because for the first time in 15 years, he wasn't the one losing. Andre Whitmore was. And this was only the beginning. It was everywhere. The news, the blogs, the talk shows. Andre Whitmore's name, once spoken with admiration and envy, had become the punchline to every late-night joke. The scandal wasn't just a whisper behind closed doors, it was a wildfire. And no matter how hard Andre tried to put it out, the flames kept spreading. Reporters dug deeper. Every financial transaction, every meeting, every questionable decision he had ever made. Suddenly, the world wanted to know everything about him. Social media turned his downfall into entertainment. Memes. Hashtags. Conspiracy theories. Employees who once praised him now distanced themselves. Some spoke out, claiming he was ruthless, that they had seen signs of his arrogance long before the scandal. Others remained silent, watching from the sidelines as the man they had once worked for was torn apart in the public eye. Then came the real blow. Investors backed out. His board of directors, the same people who had once applauded his every move, now saw him as a liability. Stock prices plummeted. Shareholders demanded answers. And Andre, he was drowning. His personal life was no better. Janice wasted no time. She filed for divorce almost immediately. There were no dramatic confrontations, no teary accusations, just a cold, calculated move to separate herself from the disaster. She had spent decades in his shadow, playing the role of the supportive wife, watching as he built an empire. But when the truth came out, she didn't give him the luxury of a second chance. She walked away, and she took everything the courts would allow her to take. As for Rebecca, she vanished. One day she was the woman at the center of the biggest scandal in the business world. The next, she was gone. No interviews. No statements. No attempts to defend herself. Some said she had taken a payout and disappeared. Others believed she had been playing both sides all along, waiting for the right moment to escape before everything collapsed. Andre was left with nothing but questions. Who had started the blog? How did they know so much? And why now? He wasn't a fool. He knew this wasn't just a case of someone stumbling upon his secret. This was deliberate. Someone had been waiting for this moment. And in a rare interview, one of the few he would ever give after the scandal, he made it clear. "Do you think you were set up?" the interviewer asked. Andre didn't hesitate. "I don't think. I know." But knowing didn't change anything. The damage was done. And somewhere, Watson was watching, satisfied that the revenge he had waited 15 years for had finally reached its conclusion. So now we're left with the big question. Was this justice? Or was Andre Whitmore just another casualty in a much larger game? For some, the answer is obvious. He made his choices. He built his empire through ruthless deals, crushed competition without hesitation, and lived a double life that was bound to catch up with him eventually. The fall was inevitable. Maybe he just never thought it would come from within. But others, they see something else. A man set up, not by accident, not by mere misfortune, but by a calculated, long-awaited vendetta. A revenge that took years to plan. A trap so meticulously crafted that by the time he realized what was happening, it was already over. And that brings us to the people who made it happen. Rebecca. Where is she now? That's the million-dollar question. Some say she left the country. Others claim she's still here, living under a different name, keeping a low profile until the world moves on. Was she just an unfortunate pawn in all of this? A woman swept up in an affair that she thought was real, only to realize too late that she was being played from both sides? Or was she in on it from the very beginning? Was Rebecca always meant to be the perfect weapon, placed right where she needed to be, with just enough access, just enough influence, to help orchestrate the scandal when the time was right? And then there's Watson Monroe. He got what he wanted. Andre lost everything. The company, the wealth, the reputation, the family. But was it enough? For 15 years, Watson waited for this moment. He built his own empire while keeping one eye on the man who had once destroyed him. He didn't just want to watch Andre fail. He wanted to make it happen. And he did. But here's the thing about revenge. Once you get it, then what? Did Watson feel satisfaction as he watched the headlines roll in, as he saw Andre's world crumble piece by piece? Did he celebrate? Did he toast to his victory, knowing that after all these years, he had finally evened the score? Or did he realize, too late, that no matter how much power he had gained, no matter how much he had taken from Andre, it still wouldn't rewrite history? It wouldn't change what had happened all those years ago. And then, there's one last piece of the puzzle. The blog. The blog that started it all. The one anonymous source that knew everything. Who really wrote it? Was it Watson himself, pulling the final string in his plan? Was it Rebecca, making her move before disappearing for good? Or was it someone else entirely? Because let's be honest, scandals don't just happen. Someone always benefits. And sometimes, the real villain isn't the one you see in the spotlight. Sometimes, they're the ones controlling the story from the shadows. So, what do you think? Was Andre a victim or a villain? Was Rebecca innocent or a mastermind? And did Watson really win? Or did he just let his obsession define him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew, make sure you subscribe. Because the truth? It's never as simple as it seems. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next case we'll uncover here on Vic's True Crime Stories.